Volcano Observatory reports that vigorous lava eruptions continue throughout the Lower East Rift Zone in Leilani Estates and Lani Buddha Gardens. Fissure 8 is feeding a large channelized flow traveling along Highway 132, the Po'o Road, with two flow fronts. The northern flow front is above Four Corners near the intersection. The southern flow front crossed Highway 137, the Kalapana-Kabo'o Road, 300 feet south of the Four Corners intersection. Part of the flow hit Green Lake and is creating a steam plume in the area. The flow is slowly moving downslope toward the ocean. Due to lava crossing Highway 137, the following policies are in effect. There is no access to Kabo'o, Vacation Land, Highway 132, and Highway 137. On roadways, Government Beach Road between Kahakai Boulevard and Cinder Road is open to Wawa and Papaya Farms Road residents only with official credentials. There is no curfew. Stay alert to warnings for civil defense officials and be prepared to evacuate with little notice. Shelters at Pahoa Community Center and Kiao Armory are open and pet friendly. We are on watch 24 hours a day for your safety. This is your Hawaii County Civil Defense Agency. Hazard that's happening out here in Kau. All the information that all these specialists provide, my responsibility to you guys is I take all this information, put it together in our messaging, and get it out to you so you guys know what to do. So, you are a part of it as well because, what we have with the county is a mass messaging system. You go onto the county website, Civil Defense, and you sign up for our Blackboard messaging. That way you receive, through text, email, and our social media sites, you'll be receiving our messages. If you signed up for that already, you're getting pinged all day long with what's going on down in Puna. So I apologize for that, but it keeps you in the know as to what those guys are going through. Another thing is, and I know it's kind of hit and miss out here in Kau, but the radio messages that we put out at the same time, they go out on the radio. So I think Kappa might be the only radio station that hits like Ocean View area. So that's something we got to work on with the radio stations, so you guys can keep getting those messages. So aside from working with the specialists, developing what your guys' actions are, that's what we work on. One thing when I worked up at Hawaii Volcanoes that we found out is sheltering in place is one of the big things that you'll have to learn to do. I know you guys have been dealing with SO2 since 2008, so you probably know already what to do. But on the downside, I know in the golf course subdivision that would get impacted a lot by the SO2. Folks actually had to come to the point where they had to move. If they couldn't handle the SO2, it's a reality of life that it could impact your situation so bad that you would have to move. That's the worst case scenario, but you're going to have to adapt, either shelter in place or leave the area for a short time. Because we found out in a couple of situations that Civil Defense evacuated the golf course subdivision. It didn't work. Levels were high. 15 minutes later, the levels were down. It just kind of messed people up. So, that's some of the stuff we learned just by the experience that we went through in 2008, and we'll probably be sharing that in the actions that we developed for you folks. But look forward to working with you guys, and I'm glad these folks are here so that we can share that message with you.
Aloha, and I want to thank all of you for somebody finally showing up. I really appreciate it personally. My one question is to this beautiful woman right here, the one from the Health North U. My question was, I have two things I want to say. The first thing is I want to ask, where in the area did you do your study? What parts of the island did you do the study? That's my first question, and then I have another question after.
Okay, so we actually studied 1,980 children. They came from 29 elementary schools all around the island, and because of that, we could set up a cross-sectional study. So the Hawi area is very clean air, and we called this area Ka'u, which is the most immediate downwind of the summit. This we thought would be, oh, I'm sorry, this we thought would be like the high SO2 and then some sulfate. So you know that sulfur dioxide combines with water vapor and it becomes sulfate. So there's a transition where you might have both SO2 and sulfate, but the longer it lasts and down the road, it's going to become almost all sulfate. So going from the summit, Ka'u area is like the more SO2 than sulfate. Of course, if you had a slow wind and the SO2 hung out over here, it would also become kind of more sulfate, which is very acid. Then Kona was the second area, and we called that high acid because what happens is when you're normally during the trade winds, the sulfur dioxide and the sulfate particles kind of hang out over the ocean. And when you have land and water next to each other, the land will heat up first on the Kona side, and it'll kind of pull the fog back on shore during the day. That's why you can see it coming up, right? And then nighttime, it comes down. The cold mountain air is heavy, pushes it back out. But that fog can stay there for days to weeks, becoming more and more acid. And then the next section up north, it's protected by the mountains. The winds sweep it clean. So the Hawi, Kapa'au area, very clean. We monitored, and then it got boring, so we just took it down. And then the interesting part is Hilo area. Hilo, Hamakua, Mountain View. That is, during trade winds, that's pretty clean. But then you have a day like yesterday or over the weekend when the winds died down or they changed direction, it'll fumigate. It'll go back upwards. So that we called the intermittent. So we studied all around the island, and we had hundreds of children in each area. Okay, the result was this. Yeah, so this is what, but you got to know, this was a powerful study because it's a natural, very well-defined experiment. We found that the highest asthma was, where would you think? Nope. It was Hilo, intermittent. And what happened was, you see, what we found was there are probably many other things that define asthma more than the volcanic air pollution. So if you look at volcanic air pollution, as long as you don't get other things mixed up in it, like smog or tobacco smoke or all that kind of thing, it's relatively pure. And what we found was, even in Kona, which was as acid as the worst place in these urban studies where they were studying smog, Kona is the most acid, and it was the same level as Uniontown, Pennsylvania, steel mills, furnaces, and they didn't have higher asthma. It was interesting. It totally floored us, and we made sure that we're finding the same thing, but it repeated year after year after year. It seemed to be more in the Hilo area, and there are other things beyond the volcanic air pollution. So we actually, in that regard, found it kind of reassuring. We did find, though, that if you already have asthma because of other things, like it runs in your family, or you're exposed to tobacco smoke, which does cause asthma, And now, it looks like nicotine, that also looks like it causes asthma. So those things cause asthma. But if you have asthma already, the acidity does make you cough more. But it's more upper airway, okay? We didn't see higher wheeze, and we didn't see more what we call bronchitis, which means it's down lower in the lungs. We define that as having persistent cough more than 3 months out of the year. They did see higher bronchitis in the studies of smog, but we didn't see it in fog. So it was really showing us that the acidity doesn't cause these issues. It's these other things that you find in smog, which when you burn fossil fuel or biomass, like when you burn tobacco, those have 3,000 to 4,000 other chemicals and toxins in them, and those probably are causal. So keep the rest of the air clean.
Knowing at the time when the ash first hit here, this place was like snow. Okay? It was, I drove through here, coming, I knew I wasn't, but coming through, you couldn't see on the highway, you couldn't see the coconut trees on either side. It was just black. Okay? Knowing that all of our children was in this school. Okay? This really was unity. Because the officials, I called the governor's office, I called Rodman, I called Josh Green, called all these different officials and asked them, education department, I called everybody because, I'm not only a grandma, I'm a great grandma. I had 25 grandchildren, I have 12 great grandchildren, and they're all mine, okay, because I had 6 children. But my concern was why our school did not close down. And I don't care what. It doesn't take. I don't need a university degree to figure that out. To look and say, you know what, this school gotta close because it's bad enough. Just listening to Brother, and he's telling us, if it gets bad enough, you gotta move. Well, if it's that bad, how come everybody in school? It just didn't make any sense, and it bothered me. It really bothered me because day by day, nobody could bring their okole over here to come look. I know how important everything was on that side of the island. That was needed. But all these officials that came, they could have spent one night and take the state van and come out here and take a look what was going on. Our babies were being exposed. Walking around, you know what I mean? Some stayed home. Some had the mind and the sense to say, how we do so. My baby's going to stay home. But I don't know how even the officials running this school, I'm not talking about our regular workers, I'm talking about the higher ups, to say, you know what, this school got to close. Whether it's today, couple of days, 1 week, whatever. It was very irritating to know that our babies was running around here. We love Kau. We love Kau. And you know what, not only in this modern time, but the people with Hawaiian ancestry, we've been exposed to this for hundreds of years. It's in our DNA already. See? So, but, you know what? To close down the school, I gotta get a degree for manage that in my mind. Do I need a university degree to figure this out? No, I don't. Common sense can tell you close the school down.
That was needed, I think. This is important. It's important to hear the voices, for sure.
No, I understand the concern, and it can be very striking. Because I've been in Kalikikua, for instance, when the fog was heavy, and you couldn't see that wall over there, and they were in school. So the thing about what you were seeing, we do have colleagues who live in the shadow of a volcano for a long time. And the ash that you're seeing, okay, so there's a lot of particles that emanate when the steam clouds erupt and they fall. So the ash is the stuff that we define as less than 2 millimeter, is very small. In general, the ash, it is a nuisance. It falls on the skin, can get in the eyes, it can clog up get in your nasal passages. But in general, ash is not what we call respirable. It actually doesn't float down into your lungs. It'll get your eyes, but sometimes a school building may have more protection. Well, outside, and that's why you say don't stay outside too long, come inside. Common sense is, come inside. So it'll get in your eyes, but you have natural protections. In the nasal passages, that's why there are hairs in there. And if you look at your nose, it's got all these curves and turbinates, they call. So particles will lodge there. And you can wash it out, but that's why we say don't play outside in the ash fall. But I'm not sure you need to close the school. I don't know that you do, but do not stay in the ash. Okay, the one good thing about it is it doesn't get down deep into the lungs. We do have friends.
So the question is, if it's not respirable, why wear a mask?
I gotta say, I think people wanted to do something, but the best thing is to be freely breathing in a room like this, where you keep the air as clean as you can, not only of ash and respirable particles, but be mindful of all the things that don't come from a volcano that you always have to worry about. Carbon monoxide. I was at a health fair, and I was measuring carbon monoxide, and it was climbing and climbing in everybody, and they blamed the volcano, but it was a diesel truck outside pumping water. So it is better to be freely breathing. Let me show you why. Can you send me the N95? So the N95, I mean, to wear this for a long period of time, like a whole school day, not a good idea, because you're going to make it airtight. And then when you are having a lot of ashfall, if you're outside playing in this, it's going to clog, and it's airtight. And so people they'll have trouble getting air in or out. That's why I worry about having children do it, or maybe people who maybe don't know how to express that they cannot breathe. So maybe the very elderly, someone with stroke. Be careful about that, because they may be unprotected. Freely breathing, shelter in place, better.
I am the kindergarten teacher here at Pohala, and the first morning that we had the big ashfall, I was like, are we going to have school? I got 15 little keiki that I got to be responsible for, and I thought, okay, let's look. And I looked at my house. I got no air conditioning. I got no air filters. I got nothing in my house, and I thought, I live in a pretty nice house. I bet a lot of my kids don't have anything better than I have. So I thought it through, and I thought, in my classroom, there's a filter. There's an air filter that I happen to leave on all night and leave my windows and doors closed. So I said, you know what? I'm going to be better off going to school. And most of my children are going to be better off in my room with that air filter. So I went to school, made sure everything was tight, had the filter on, we turned on the fans, and I'm telling you, it was hotter. It was hot. By the end of the day, we were all hot. But when we left the room to go anywhere, the school had found some masks for children. We decorated them, put hearts and flowers on them, and we wore them. And when they went out to play, for some reason, this was the question I was going to ask. I go to school, everything's closed up. Okay, leave the doors closed, close the windows, turn on the fans, don't let your kids out. And then at some point, oh, fine, go out and play and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how can 30 minutes later you can go out and play when you were wearing a mask and walking around scared to breathe 30 minutes before? So that was my question about the change in the recommendations, because I just wanted to keep them in and keep them sheltered in place. We have plenty of good stuff to do in the classroom, and I didn't need them to go outside. But then I would get this message, and I was like, oh, they'd say, open your doors, open your windows, create a flow. And then I was like, is there that big of a quick change when the winds come and blow it away? Is it because of the rain? Anyway, we worked really hard, and I truly felt and made the decision that the children were safer, or as safe at school, preoccupied with learning and doing activities and being in their regular routine, than to be at home not doing academics and not and having more of a chance to be worried about it.
I just want to say I think you exercised good judgment there in that decision. As we said, in an ashfall type event, we want to keep kids inside. And as far as I know, there's 2 large air-conditioned rooms that were designed specifically when this building went up as a so-called fog shelter to keep people
protected. And generally, air-conditioned buildings are much tighter than non-air-conditioned buildings, so they're generally much more protective. And kids could even move around in a large room like this, depending on how many kids are in here. And I know there's another large room in the gym next door. So I think that's a good move. Addressing your question about how long the exposures last. Now, an ashfall event might kind of pass through with the winds and lessen in a fairly short time. I'm not sure we have analyzed a lot of good data on that since those events are fairly recent, but I can tell you for like the SO2 and particulate exposures in 2008, and it appears to be kind of a pattern this year, the way the winds blow through here, we're getting higher exposures in the morning. I don't know if you sense that just by living here. So if you look at our color codes on the charts and when the levels go high of, say, SO2 gas, it's typically in the morning hours, and then by 11, 12, it's clearing up. So you can use that to your benefit. You can follow those patterns and have recess in the afternoon rather than the morning, things like that, and use that. But the way the winds come up here, there's patterns of the wind, and you'll often it's not ironclad, but oftentimes there'll be patterns, and it's typically higher in the morning, in Pahala perhaps late at night as well, but in the mid-afternoon hours appear to be showing up on our monitor here anyway as much better. So it will change in a matter of hours for the SO2 gas, for example. So, and you could do that by, if you had access to internet, by watching the site, because it's updated every 15 minutes, yes. Gotcha. So they were probably basing their decisions off the monitor on the school, and it was showing all of a sudden that it had dropped from an area of caution down to an area of fine.
Hi. I want to say, first of all, thank you so much to Civil Defense and USGS for your reporting out. It's been super helpful for those of us who live here, travel for work, come back. But I do have a question about how you report. What is the explosion threshold or whatever it is that gets the report sent out through Civil Defense for the crater? Because I've noticed a whole lot of activity, because I go back and forth every day, and I'm sure many of us do, and many of us have seen it, like, actively exploding, and then I wait for the alert through Blackboard or through my email, and I don't get one, but then I will randomly get some other ones. So I'm just curious what the threshold is for what you report.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I have to say we have had to develop some new procedures. We weren't really quite ready to be dealing with ash explosions from the summit in terms of our messaging. So I apologize that it's not been a smooth service right off the bat, and we're going to improve it. Part of the problem is that we don't have people up at the volcano now 24/7 watching things. We have instruments that are detecting the explosions, but we're not always sure that every instrument response is telling us exactly the same thing. So we're not confident yet that we can say, oh, we see this sign on this signal on the seismometer, it means an explosion of ash to 20,000 feet. But we're working on that. We've put out new instruments, and we're constantly trying to get to that point. The other part of this, though, is that the Weather Service has this radar down here, and that radar is very good at seeing the ash cloud. And we are in discussion with the Weather Service about how to better react to the sudden signal when they see an ash cloud or a cloud on the radar, and how we can more rapidly get a message out. I hope that this is clear, though, that there will always be an element of uncertainty, because we may have to put out an alert that we see a cloud up to 15,000, 20,000 feet, but we don't really know how much ash is in that cloud. And so there may be an alert saying downwind communities be ready, and the ash may not come. So I hope if that happens a few times, you don't say, oh, I'm not going to pay attention anymore. We'll do our best to prevent that, but it will happen. So okay. Thank you.
You can send the messages to me, honestly. I will accept them in my inbox. I promise.
What kind of effects does the ash have on your skin?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the first
point to note is that when ash falls, it's going to fall cool, so it won't land on you and burn. It's just when it falls like ambient temperature. The point was that it falls cold, so it won't burn you if it falls on you. The other thing about ash is that it can dry your skin out a lot, and so keeping your skin moisturized is usually a pretty good idea. When I work in the lab afterwards, my hands are often cracked from just handling a lot of ash, but it's not poisonous. It won't start burning or eating your skin or anything like that. You can dust it off, take a shower. The only other thing is that in this ash there's probably a lot of sulfur dioxide stuck to it, and so it might smell. If you're particularly sensitive, it might irritate your nose afterwards, so washing it off is a reasonable idea, not for health effects but for your own comfort.
MIT just put a sensor at the Ocean View Community Center. When are we going to have access to the results of that?
So MIT was really helpful with the initial emergency response and actually lent their monitors to Department of Health and EPA to put monitors out in the lower rift zone. All of those have come back out because we have lots of other EPA equipment, and MIT is just getting ready to launch their school program. Sounds like it'll be about a couple of weeks yet before that data goes up. That's a project directly with MIT, the Kohala Center, and the communities.
So we know we can monitor it, or is it just whatever they decide to share with us?
Again, that's not a program that we're doing directly, but my understanding is the whole intent is community engagement. They will be posting it with two things, both the standard 6-color chart that you're familiar with. There'll be a big note on it saying this is a research project. So it'll also have a link to civil defense. So you don't want to go there to be making your evacuations decisions. You want to be listening to the radio. But so that my understanding is that intent is to do that. They're not, many of those sensors aren't going to be in the eruptive areas, but all from here all the way up. Yeah, all over. Yeah. Yes, 500 parts per million. Yes. So that is still so the Department of Health, actually some of those same things happen in the Kona area as well, and we realize the Department of Health has especially when it's our monitors, has a separate obligation to let folks know about ash advisories. That was a real mistake that we made with respect to Kona, for example, yesterday. Separately from that, there are the alerts coming out from the county, and those alerts so far are at the sort of next level of threshold, but we're working with the county on getting those up. You're going to decide how those go out exactly as well. We did notice yours. And we noticed, honestly, we noticed yours and the Department of Health noticed both, and we didn't do what we could have done, which is notify you, and I'm sorry. Yes, we do learn from our mistakes. Okay.
So I have a lot of concerns. Once this ash fall started, I started an online ka'ukaku to see what input we could get as far as help that is needed out there. And with Ocean View, we've got a bunch of notifications as far as ash falling in their water tanks, parents having to bathe their kids with bottled water. A lot of them have asthma, and we helped one parent yesterday where she had to use the rest of her food stamps to buy bottled water so she could bathe her kids and help her baby with asthma machines and so forth. So my husband and I, we donated a couple cans of formula to her, and then I got with Pastor Troy Gakayan to see if somebody could run out there and take her some cases of water and the formula. So again, with Ocean View, the ash falling out in their water tanks and in their filters is a concern. And then we also have been asking donations for masks because I know you folks pass it out periodically. So we've been asking for donations, and people's been mailing a bunch of masks to us, and my husband and I have been personally mailing it out to people that can't get out there to get the mask. So I've been personally just throwing it out there social media wise and trying to get feedback to see what kind of help is people in need and what can be done to get our district the help that they need as far as water and purifiers for families or cleaning out people's water tanks, making sure they cover them with tarps and so forth. So that was just my concern. And then another thing, in a time of evacuation, if and so we all got to evacuate, what is the plan for that? And, where are we going to go? If people don't have places to go, what is the action plan for that as far as evacuating?
I'm going to go to the evacuation site first.
Well, like I mentioned before, with ash, it's the same thing as SO2, where you shelter in place. So, and the tough thing is that we don't know when ash explosion is going to happen. We're finding out, after the fact, and so it's going to be on our side. We're going to have to get the message out to you guys fast enough so that you can make sure that you're shutting down your house, closing up your windows, your doors, and making sure that you're sheltering in place. In the worst case scenario, we do have identified areas within the communities that you can go to for evacuation. This would be one of the facilities, but I know folks are more comfortable in their own places, and so that's part of the adjustment that we're all going to have to make. You guys got a new issue that you're going to have to deal with out here with ash. You guys have been dealing with SO2 since 2008. Now it's going to be ash, so you're going to have to, come up with ideas how to, weatherproof your house so that ash won't come through the window sills or the door sills. And, the county is able to research that kind of stuff, see what's available for you all. But, evacuation, I don't think that's necessary. What we push is shelter in place.
So thank you for being a person in the community that's helping out. It's wonderful.
We wanted to get like a hub place where we can offer cases of water to people, especially in Ocean View. Like, I live here in Pahala and I'm on county water. And then also being able to test our waters to see, if the waters are good to even drink from the county faucets and so forth. And then getting the people out in Ocean View some water, because, just hearing this mom's story with her infants, and I have children that have asthma, it really touched my heart. And I had to just totally reach out to her. And I feel for the rest that's out there that needs support. So that's our goal, is to get the support that they need with water and so forth.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here this evening. Quick question for John. I think that was his name. You put a couple of temporary. I drove in from Waiohinu and Na'Lehu area. You said there's a couple of SO2 monitors, temporary monitors in Na'Lehu, and I wonder if that data is going to get online with Pahala and Ocean View SO2 monitoring.
Just a clarification, as far as I know, that's one SO2 monitor and one particulate monitor. So the two different things, as far as I know. And Phoenix might be able to address whether they're temporary or going to be replaced with more permanent monitors, or whether they're going to be reported, as you say, along with the rest of the data soon.
So for right now, those are part of the emergency response network, part of the meters that EPA is putting out to help us kind of understand what's going on with the overall rift. At this point, those data are not public. They're a different kind of machine, and so we are using them for the under county's direction for emergency planning. Is that one of the sites we were talking about for additional state monitoring? So we're also looking, the Department of Health is looking to put more permanent monitors around the state. And actually this is right, the last page here. Here, I'll let Lisa talk about this. This shows proposed sites that the Department of Health is considering. So you might want to look at those, and we can, would be happy to take your input.
Yeah, I think, so in the handout, there's a map, and most of the sites are looking at possibly putting up permanent monitoring for SO2, and, depends where it is. If it's on the Kona side, it'd probably be like a particulate monitor. On the southern side, like down this side, Na'Alehu, probably be both, because you folks are getting both SO2 and PM. Okay.
We have time for, we'll go for 5 more minutes or so. So, over here. Okay. I'm gonna pick the energetic hands. So this is the point that we're at here.
I thank you for putting on this forum, first forum in our area. I was wondering when we were going to get one out here. Every week it's Pahoa. Anyway, I work at Naaleho Elementary School, and we can close our windows, our doors, but the particulates still come in through the louvers because there's gaps in them. So over the weekend, no one's there. Come in on Monday or Tuesday morning, and everything's gritty. Okay, it's just like the ash that winds up on our cars and whatever else we have. So we have a major problem. We only have one building, the newest building on our school grounds, that is air conditioned and sealed like this, with the windows way up here. The rest of the classrooms, we have those grates, so we don't even have screens. And when the wind blows, everything just comes right through my classroom and a lot of other classrooms too. So even sheltering in place is not going to help us much. So I just want it on record that the particulates, they come in. And yesterday, we even smelled the SO2 coming through. We did close the doors. It helped a little bit, but still, it's coming through. So what can be done in this situation? Thank you.
It's acknowledged, and sometimes you may have to tolerate a little bit. The ash doesn't get into your body that much, and it is not toxic in and of itself. And the SO2, I gotta say, I know it's high. When I crossed the 42-mile marker, I said, okay, it must be around. I can titrate with my own symptoms. But I did, as a med student, I actually rode a bicycle in dry code SO2 500 parts per billion. So I'm looking at your handouts here. You're topping out sometimes at about 500 here. And we as medical students got to be in this chamber. And, you know, I was disappointed. Nothing happened to me. But my then boyfriend, he had a little asthma, and he had a reaction. So there's some susceptibility. Not everyone's going to have that. But most of us can actually tolerate 500 for a little bit. Okay, I don't go wallow in it, but we also don't need to be airtight, I think.
If I could just add on to that by saying some of the handouts in the back that I hope all of you can pick up have some great information based on communities around the world that have dealt with ashfall. And there's a whole section in here about cleaning up inside your home or your school with tips about what to do. I think Dr. Tam is correct that we all can tolerate exposure to a little bit of ash. It's not going to hurt us at the levels you're describing, but there are some suggestions in here about how to clean it up. And I think that's advisable. So please pick up one of these brochures in the back.
Yeah, we definitely have enough of those brochures for everyone here. So
thank you very much. Very well done. We started importing from Australia these disposable face masks. They're rated at N99, and they also take out sulfuric acid and SO2. Also for chemical warfare, it does also take out mustard gas. And we tried them, brought them in, and they're doing very well. And brought in a second shipment, but the demand is too big. So I have to ration it in terms of the sales of it. We're selling it for $7. And we're donating a portion to charity, and our companies were subsidizing the mask. So regarding the question of rationing in terms of selective selling, we're looking at rationing by sensitive groups using prescription respirators or prescription as a means to determine who to give it to, who sell it to. Can I have your opinion as to how we can help get it to sensitive groups? Because we don't want to just give it to people who can afford it. We want to get it to sensitive groups of people.
It's a tough question. I don't know much about this mask. I do know that, studying the people in Kona, the children in Kona who are exposed to a lot of sulfate. that most of them didn't have much problem. So the ones with asthma, and even then, not everyone with asthma was susceptible to the same degree. So it's likely, and then we also found that there are people who hadn't been diagnosed yet. Our study found them, by our methods. So it's not an easy question. I suspect people will come to you who want the mask and say, I have asthma, and I don't know how you're going to verify that.
So people who come to us have to show us their inhalers, because the inhalers have their names on and the prescription as well. If other people have upper respiratory problems, because I don't have enough in the second shipment. We're in the process of bringing a very large shipment in and creating a hub in Hilo, so that organizations that would like to participate can go ahead and pick it up from the hub. Every single mask we sell, we lose money. We're not in it for the money. We're here to try to find something that can benefit the community.
Okay, and we're going to do one final question. I have two questions and a statement, but I'll be really fast. Okay. So just what would y'all recommend as far as people who are getting air purifiers for their homes? Is there something, there's like a million different kinds you can get, and the filters filter out 27 billion different kinds of things, probably except for what we need them to, I'm guessing. But what would you recommend that we look for in buying an air purifier for our homes? You have two questions? That's my first question. My second question is, if y'all had to say kind of short-term, medium-term, long-term, what you're worried about for all of us, what would you say, health-wise? And then my statement is just, I think that there's the Ocean View Community Center is going to be opening up as a clean room. Okay, all right. So we work at Pacific Quest, and we've been accepting donations at what used to be the hostel down in Alehu, and we've been sending that stuff over to Puna, but I think we maybe start sending that stuff now over to Ocean View. So if anybody wants to bring water, bottled water, things like that, and it's easier for you to drop it off at what used to be the hostel down in town, we would be happy to collect all that stuff and take it over to Ocean View and do what we can to support the community in that way. So that was my statement.
Close to my mouth. Okay, the air purifiers. So most of the time, fans that are sold for the home they're underpowered. If you look at, say, bathroom exhaust fans, they don't work that well. There are some more expensive ones that work better, but they're underpowered. They don't really exhaust the bathroom. So the same thing is for these air purifiers. There are many on the market. And the ones that are best probably have a HEPA filter, a high efficiency filter, but not all of them have it. And so if you want to buy one, you need to check and see the size of the room it was designed for, because many times these filters, you spend your money and they don't really do anything. So you need to have the HEPA filter, and then make sure the unit is big enough to take care of the room you plan to use it in. And the problem is, sometimes to get an adequate filter for a room, you need a really big filter, and that's beyond what the average person can buy. So I would be the skeptical shopper. Make sure you spend your money for what you think you're going to get, but for sure it needs to have that HEPA filter, HEPA. That's what it certainly needs. For the long-term, medium, and the acute effects or the early effects, I'll let Dr. Tan talk about that first.
Go to the asthma and allergy website, and they recommend, because it's a matter not only of the high efficiency particulate filter, but also the seal around it and the cubic feet per meter. And what you're saying about the cubic feet per meter, you want 3 changes of air, per hour, and so you can do that calculation, but there's specifics. One thing, be very careful, do not get those that have ionizers, because what they do is they make ozone, which is a free radical. It's not good for the lungs, and people, Sharper Image, Brookstone, they'll say ionize your air, not a good idea. So just high efficiency, and go to these websites where the mothers and families of people with allergy, you want to, all those particles, and I have here, I didn't know there would be so many people here, but if you come up, I'll explain the particle sizes, like a hair is 100 microns. What goes into your lungs is 2.5 microns, which is the size of smaller than a pollen, which is 10 microns, and a cell is about 5 microns. Okay, so that's what these filters, they're getting stuff that would float down into your lungs. It filters it out. So those things, but watch out for those that say, oh, ionize your air, or ozonator, oh, not a good idea. Okay,
I can add to that too. So the Cadillac model you want to look for here, because Pahala gets significant SO2 exposures, well over the levels at portions of the day that we would put caution to people that have respiratory disorders, asthma, etc. So you'd want to look for a filter that also had an acid gas filter. So they put those in line with the HEPA filter. So you're filtering both the particulates, a HEPA filter, as well as, and the HEPA filter is similar to these things, right, that you're wearing for particulate protection, and then an acid gas filter. Unfortunately, that kind of model makes the cost go up. I know we can talk later, but I know of at least 3 models that are designed for bog or acid gas as well as particulates, and then the range of $800 to $1,500 a piece. These are room air cleaners. They're designed to filter about 800 to 900 square feet. So they're kind of the things you put in your bedroom if you had a child that had a respiratory disorder to protect them at night while they're sleeping or something like that. And I would just say to your second question, that's my biggest worry here. Looking at the levels of SO2 gas that's here, it's with the increase of the mass of SO2 coming out of the vents, we're getting longer durations in this, what we call this orange zone, or areas where it's a very big concern for folks with asthma, heart disease, those kind of conditions. So we need to double our efforts to talk about things like air cleaners and provide ideas and resources and options for those. Make sure that we give more information about sheltering, how to do that properly to provide protection, get information to the community about when those exposures are happening so you'll know when they're happening and when you need to protect your kids or family members that are sensitive.